Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday to everyone. And welcome to the Radical Edge of HR, TRA version today. Thank you so much for joining us. I, of course, am your host, Tanya Hawley. I am the Senior Marketing Specialist with HR Knowledge Source. And once again, I've got the experts with me because I couldn't do this without them, of course. So today, I have Miss Shanika Freeman with TRA. Hey, Shanika.
Hi.
Welcome back. And then I have, of course, the fabulous Miss Amma Hooks, a special panelist today. She's not normally here for TRA, so we got special. Not saying you're not special, Shanika, but anyway,
I get
welcome, Amma.
it. Thank you, Tanya. Welcome. Thank you
We
for
just
having me.
thank you so much because you're normally not here for the TRA, so that's why I was saying that. I wanted to make that known. So we appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us again with Shanika and helping us get through this special topic today, which is quiet quitting. Quiet quitting, everybody, is our topic for the day. So let's go ahead and dive in with the experts, Shanika and Amma. And Shanika, I'm going to start with you. We'll let Amma rest just for a minute. But can you please just define what quiet quitting is and the difference between the great resignation and quiet quitting?
Absolutely. So just hear the words quiet quitting. This is when employees are quietly removing themselves from their jobs. They're still working, they're still showing up physically for work, but they're quietly removing themselves away from their jobs
Hmm.
for various reasons. But we won't get into those reasons right now. But going back to the original question, is quitting quietly. Meanwhile, the great resignation is, hey, an employee at a particular company, they're interested in other opportunities outside of the company. They
Hmm.
begin a job search and they resign. It's no lagging in their resignation. It's a resignation. They found other opportunities and they're not leading their employer on to believe that they want to be there. They've
Hmm.
submitted their resignation or tenured their resignation and they've left. So here's a difference. An employee leaves the company. They have shown that they're interested in other opportunities directly to their employer. Meanwhile, quiet quitting is employees are still there. They're still showing up, but they're not invested in the work that they're doing. And eventually they'll leave.
Okay. So the leaving is still in there. It's just
The
a
leaving is
matter.
correct.
Okay. It's just a matter of there's no signs of it. Is what I'm hearing, right? Um, or
They're
subtle
and
signs.
that's the thing we have to as managers, employers, we have to listen to those signs may not be visible directly,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
they're there. We just have to know, and I think we may get into that. We just have
Yes.
to know what those signs are so that we know if an employee is
Right.
quietly quitting.
So it sounds like, and we are going to get into it, of course, but it sounds like there's subtle signs. We just have
Yes,
to be
very subtle
aware of them.
signs. But
Okay.
if I can just explain a little bit more.
Sure.
So quiet quitting could the great resignation could be a result of quiet quitting.
Okay. Yes, we're going to talk about that some more.
Okay. So that those are things that
Yeah.
it could be a result of that.
Okay. Interesting. This is an interesting topic to me. It's a new topic for me. So I'm quite curious to talk more about it.
Mhm.
So, Ahmed, how do you know when you're losing employees' interest? Because apparently that's one of the things that goes
So
along with it.
I think I have a slightly different perspective of quiet quitting because
Okay.
I don't really think it's anything new. We're really talking about disengaged employees, employees that come, they show up, they do their job, they go home. They're not willing to go above and beyond. They don't want to do much extra. They're there to collect their paycheck and go home. That's disengaged. This year, Gallup did a poll. There's been, I think, an increase of disengaged and actively disengaged employees,
Mhm.
disengaged about 17% right now. So people are saying, I am not going above and beyond for this company
Mhm.
anymore. And that is now called quiet quitting. Gotta love a good hashtag for TikTok. So um
Okay.
How do you know you're starting to lose employees? I really think it's based on behavior. Now, I am also of the mindset that you don't need a team of high performers. You need some people that are going to be consistent in there to do their job. You need the high performers as well. And so I think it's a decline or a digression in someone's behavior, the way they approach maybe a project, the way that they approach meetings. So if they were always naturally quiet and they're quiet in meetings, then are they quiet quitting? Maybe, maybe not, right? But let's say this is someone who is usually giving ideas and inputs and seems really engaged, and now you're starting to see a decline in engagement. That's typically a sign that that person is starting to quietly quit. Let's say you had someone who, and these are just examples, someone who, would consistently have career conversations with their leader, and now they don't talk about their career with the organization at all anymore. That's a sign of quiet quitting. Someone who might stay over and work late weekends, and now they're not doing that anymore. Another sign of quiet quitting.
That's great. Okay. There's a part 2 to that question. I guess I'll call it part B. What are some things that companies or managers can do to reduce the risk of their employees quietly quitting, especially new hires, especially?
So I love this question because I think when we talk about engagement, a very large percentage of that is the leader's responsibility. And so questions that leaders can ask themselves, and I know that statement can scratch a little bit, but we are the keepers of our culture at the organization. Right. So you can ask yourself, are the expectations of this job understood? And are they realistic? That's number one. Because if I'm expecting someone to answer emails nights and weekends every week, week after week, is that a realistic expectation if someone's not willing to do it? Or is the expectation even known? Because a lot of these things are unspoken rules that the younger generation is just not willing to abide by anymore.
Okay.
Right or wrong or indifferent, but that's just what it is. Another question is, is the pay in alignment with my expectations?
Oh,
Because pay is real, and people will quietly quit if they feel like they're going above and beyond and not seeing progress. Another question a leader can ask themselves and do: am I having consistent career conversations, and is there job mobility? Because McKinsey did a study: 41% of people are leaving organizations because there is no career advancement. So career advancement has a lot to do with quiet quitting. When someone feels stifled and silenced because they don't feel like they're growing. There's a lot of other things managers can do, but I would say those are probably top 3.
Yes, those are good. And a lot of those new hires, the part of the question was especially new hires, that would tie right into, are they going to have career advancement as a new hire, and having that conversation right when they get in there so they know that there's room to grow, because otherwise they may just walk right back out the door from what you've just said.
Yes, like it's something concrete. And so, yes, you can't guarantee a promotion, right? But there should be a pathway.
Absolutely.
So someone knows that they can work towards a goal. It is no longer enticing nor sexy to hear someone's been with an organization for 25 years or in a position for 15 years and there's been no mobility. Millennials and Gen Zers are like, no, thank you.
Yes. And much do I love that you said it's not sexy either. I just love that you said that.
I mean, I'm gonna keep it real, Tanya.
I love that. I love it. So that was good. That's a large number, 47%.
41%.
Oh, 41%. That's a large number, large percentage.
Yeah. Especially with all the DEI movement and just what is going on, people are now looking at career mobility a lot more. And what does the top look like? What does senior executives look like? What does VP level look like? Directors, does it represent the population that you serve? And if you're not giving me a pathway, maybe I'm just going to come collect this paycheck and look for next somewhere else.
Yes, that was good. Thank you, Amma, for that. Shanika, coming back to you.
Absolutely.
So as a recruiter, what you do best, how do you identify candidates who may have used this trend in their previous job? Are you able to identify?
You can. So if we think back to Alma's points, what are the employees looking for? If we think about our company culture, we have to think about the company culture. I think it first starts with understanding the company culture and see if these are open doors for employees to quietly quit. Then when we bring in new talent, we think about everything that we're doing as organizations to keep employees engaged. Whatever it is that we're doing to keep employees engaged and all of those things, we have to revert that back to our new employees coming on board. So listening to, okay, employees are quitting because of salary and pay. Are we paying enough? Will we hire someone today and see 6 months from now they're not engaged, they're not receiving the pay that they think they deserve for this position, and does the job align to what we're looking for? So when we ask those questions as recruiters, we're asking from a company perspective. Hey, organization, here's what we're looking at. Here are our strategies for career pathing, because employees now are looking for that career pathing. We have to hear those questions or hear what the talent is telling us. If they're telling us that they're looking for quick progression and we know we can't give that to them, then this is not a candidate that we want to recruit for. If we're looking at a candidate that's saying, hey, you know what, I'm okay with being in a position for 5 years, one position for 5 years, and I don't have any plans to progress in my career, don't know how many people are there, but there are some people who want a job, they're okay with that position, then and this position is that position for them, or that aligns with what they're needing, then this may be an opportunity or perfect opportunity. So when we're recruiting, we have to listen to what the talent is telling us and see if that aligns with what this position or what this job is offering. That would reduce, I feel like that would reduce the number of employees that would eventually quietly quit. They can quietly quit within 6 months. It can be a year. It can be 5 years. And we all know our feelings change. When we go into a job or into a role, we're excited about this position.
Mm-hmm.
As we get acclimated into the company or the organization, and we see moves and we see changes and we see things going on, our feelings change in a good way, bad way, or indifferent. It could be imbalanced. So as a recruiter, I have to listen to what the talent is telling me and see if that aligns with the organizational structure, with
Okay.
the career pathing that we have as an organization or what the organization has, and see it can be today or whatever the plans are for the future. But will this talent align with what or where the company or the culture is going within the company?
Okay. Thank you for that. What I've heard from both of you, I've heard you both mention the culture of the company. Both of you have mentioned that, so that tells me that that's very important in this situation. In matching the culture, I guess that it matches for the employee. The culture of the company matches for the employee is a good match, because otherwise, I guess that could just blow everything up. They quiet quitting, resignation, all of that.
That's highly important. That's highly
All of
important.
it. All of that. So, yes, I picked that up because you both have mentioned it a couple times. So that's good knowledge, good nuggets for today. Let's switch back over talking about employees for you, Alma. What are some things employees can do when they find themselves burnout or dissatisfied with their job or their employer?
Yeah. So first, the employee needs to just reassess what their goals are. And is this position, is this job serving my goals?
Mhm.
Number two, the employee also needs to reassess what their passions are, what they're good at, what their strengths are. Because you know what? A very real conversation is you might not get a job paying what you needed to pay in your passion right now. right? But
Mm.
what are some strengths that you have? What are some competencies that you possess where you can still feel that within your job? So, example could be maybe I love volunteering at a food bank, and I can't pursue that full time. But is there a way that I can create an opportunity within my current position, within my current company, to still achieve that goal? But you won't know that until you sit and assess what your goals are.
Mm.
Have a meeting with your leader. Have a meeting with your leader regarding what your goals are, what your strengths are, and where you see this career path going. Because that might ignite something within your leader, it might ignite something within yourself. Another thing you can do is seek different opportunities within your organization if you're bored, because quiet quitting can also just be boredom. Your
Mhm.
Yeah,
skill sets are
that's
not
true.
being utilized, so
Mhm.
find a way to have your skill sets utilized. Now I can go into a whole nother conversation about stretch assignments, because that employers like to use that to help develop people, but it doesn't always lead to somewhere. So if it's not going to lead to somewhere, don't call it a stretch assignment, just call it additional hands on deck. But off my
Okay.
soapbox with that. Another thing an employee can do is take time off, because sometimes with burnout, it's because you've been going 115% for so
Yes.
Mhm.
long. You don't see the benefit, you don't see the reward of doing that. And so now you're like, what is it all for? When actually you just need a break. Right. So
Mm.
that
That's good.
that self-care is really important. And then
Mhm.
I'll say the last piece of it is increasing and growing yourself. And so within quiet quitting, again, we're talking about disengagement. We're
Mhm.
talking about someone who is just there to collect a paycheck, and that wasn't the initial goal. So, what can you do in the organization to still feel like you're growing, to still increase your skill sets, still increase your personal development while you're there? So, those are some things that an employee can do to improve the quiet quitting. But the main theme of everything I just said is self reflection. Can't blame
Mm.
everybody else. You got to see what's
Right.
going on with you first.
That's good. Yes, and I love how you said and take a break if you need to step away for a minute. Everybody needs that, and then at that time maybe that's where you do your self reflection,
Mhm.
and you can figure out what it is that's going on, what you really want out of this, and on all those things that you talked about. But I love that because we forget to do that sometimes. We get so tied up with life, including work is a large part of that for a lot of people, of course. Um, and we forget about we sometimes need to step away from it,
Mhm.
and that's healthy for work. That's healthy for your job, for your work as well. It makes you better when you are a well-rounded person. So thank you for that, Ama. There's some great tips, great nuggets for everybody today, and we are almost out of time. We got time for one more question.
Okay.
And I just want you both to share on this one. What are some of the signs an employee can ask themselves or an employer can take note of if quiet quitting is taking place? So, is there anything you can think of, any type of questions or things you can give to our audience that would help in this circumstance? And whoever would like, Shanika, you want to lead this one?
Yeah, I actually want to piggyback off of
Okay.
something that Amma mentioned, and it goes back to Amma's main point, self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to Amma's point, self-reflection, because you ask yourself first, you get up as an employee, you wake up, you go and you spend time in this office or in this, it doesn't necessarily have to be an office, but wherever the work environment is, ask yourself, is this fulfilling? Am I happy?
Mm-hmm.
Is this, do I feel like I've accomplished the day's task? Or is this overwhelming to me? I truly believe that it's something with it as an employee who is considering or going through that notion of quiet quitting. Maybe they don't know that they're quietly quitting,
Right.
but asking that question of themselves or asking those questions of themselves, if this is fulfilling for me. But then I think on the other side, from an employer's perspective, I'm sorry, it's reflecting on that employee's behavior. I think we said this earlier in the conversation. taking a look at the employee's behavior and see if there are any changes. So if a manager or a leader sees that there are some changes in this employee's behavior, ask those questions. They may or may not be quietly quitting, but we won't know until we ask questions of the employee to see what's going on. They could have some personal things going on, but we won't know. But I really think that we should look at behaviors, because overall, that's what quietly quitting is. It's the change in behavior. Whether it's assigning more tasks to an employee and we don't know that we're giving an employee too many tasks, and the employee is trying to take on and they just become overwhelmed and they start to disengage themselves from their tasks, and it could be a domino effect. But just asking those questions. First question, is this fulfilling for me? Ama, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's so good. Shanika, is this fulfilling? So important to ask yourself. I will also, I'm going to paint a picture. So we talked about the great resignation, right? And so Shanika, you made such a good point that the great resignation is a byproduct of, quiet quitting. And then I can also say that it's probably also a vicious cycle because of the great resignation. There are open positions, jobs still need to get done. So now people are being stretched, right? And so within that, I think, am I fulfilled? And do I understand the requirements of this job?
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very simple as going back to a job description and seeing what my job actually entails. If you feel like you're doing the job of 2 and 3 leaders, now do you feel like you're being paid to do the job of 2 and 3 people? Because quiet quitting, there is a direct correlation with pay as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's time to have that conversation. What's in line with you with promotion, pay, salary range, all of those things. So I think, am I fulfilled? Am I doing the job I was hired to do? If not, am I being paid adequately? And then the third thing is, am I growing?
Mm-hmm.
And growing doesn't have to just mean money. But if I feel like I'm idle, or if I feel like I'm not winning every day, that could be problematic as well. And so if the answer is no, I'm not growing, to employee, now it's time to take initiative, own your development to a certain extent, because the manager owns that too, and going to speak to the necessary parties.
Great. Thank you for that, both of you. Was there anything else you wanted to cover before we end our session for today? Was there any other things you want to close with? Okay, I'm just laughing. Go ahead.
I do, because this whole topic of quiet quitting, like there's quiet quitting, and now you hear topics of quiet firing, and it's just become a thing, right? And so I think it's really on the onus of the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And a leader needs to ask themselves, what am I expecting? Because a lot of this you're hearing like, oh, well, if a person won't work on the weekends, or if they won't answer emails on the weekends, or won't answer emails on vacation, and all of these things that kind of blur the lines of work-life balance, that's problematic as well. So I think it takes reflection on the leader's behalf, reflection on the employee's behalf, and you're finding a way to co-create and coexist together. So that's what I'll say to that.
I love it. Because there were some questions, and we touched on a lot of them. We were talking about when I asked the last question about things you can ask yourself, but I think you touched on that throughout our session today. Because things like if the employer is observing or paying attention, they'll notice if somebody is, working through their lunch period all the time, or staying after work all the time, and working extra, or missing personal things because they're working on work things and it should be at that soccer game, or those kind of things, or they're missing lunch, or they're sacrificing a lot of their personal stuff for work related. So if you're, as an employee or employer, observe these things, that those are some of the things to ask yourself or pay attention to for what you're saying.
Yes, Tanya, and here's what I just thought of too. Like, additional time does always not mean productive. And
That's
so,
true. Yeah.
you know, if you have someone, because a lot of people are misconstruing quiet quitting with someone who does an excellent job just within the time constraints.
Mm-hmm.
If your job is 9 to 5, if that even exists anymore, and you kill it from 9 to 5, 110% during that time, so you can leave on time and have your balanced life, that's not quiet quitting. That's
Mm-hmm.
being productive and efficient with your time. So sometimes people take, you know, all this extra work over time as, oh, this person is invested and committed. That person could just be unproductive. But you need to know your people to determine that, to your point.
And I think that's another show right there.
If I can add something to this as well, employees wants to feel valued. So asking those questions, that this is another show. The
Yeah, there's another one.
an employee, because if I don't feel valued as an employee and I'm giving you my all, I'm just gonna remove myself slowly and, you know, take my talent somewhere else. But another show. I want to add this on top of that. So as I was preparing for this conversation, and it was so ironic, Dr. Phil, if we have time later, Dr. Phil last Friday on his show, the topic was quiet quitting.
Oh,
And
was it really?
It was. So if we have time, it's not a plug, but it's a plug. Go to YouTube and just take a look at the video. It's about 15-minute long video, and it had an array of, the audience was an array of generations, generational differences in what we believe in bringing what is a full day's work. Generation, you mentioned it, Generation X and Gen Zers, we may think differently than you know, other generations.
Oh yeah, that was a whole topic last time.
It's a bit, and I think some of this has to do with, okay, who our leaders are and who our employees are. Our leaders may be of a different generation than us. We have new generations entering into the workforce. This generation thinks differently than, you know, traditional Xers. So absolutely. I think that's a big difference into why, or the reasons why a lot of Gen Xers are not bringing their whole selves to work, because we think differently.
Yes, bottom line. Thank you for that, Shanika. Well, ladies, we are out of time. Believe it or not, that's a fast, almost 30 minutes to the dot. Yeah, to the minute, to the second. So I thank you both so much for sharing your expertise, your knowledge with everyone on this interesting topic of quiet quitting. So I ask everyone, please share this. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, contact us. Shanika, can you give TRA's information for those that might be interested with any recruiting?
Oh, put me on the spot.
Oh, HRKS Recruits. I got you. HRKS Recruits is where you can find everything. And of course, on LinkedIn, where we're airing live, and on Facebook as well. We appreciate all of you joining us, and we hope you will join us every month when we have exciting topics. Again, I'm Tanya Hawley with HRKS. And remember, we know HR at HRKS, but TRA knows recruiting. So make sure if you need help with any of those things, you contact us. Thank you so much, both Alma and Shanika. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.